The relentless Kansas sun scorched the prairie, a heat haze shimmering over Dodge City. Nestled within the city, the police station stood, its time-worn bricks witness to countless stories of crime and justice. From its topmost tower, the flag fluttered, casting moving shadows like spectral hands reaching for salvation. Amidst the city's sweltering midday bustle, a man stepped off the train onto the platform. Elbridge Carter, a moniker etched in the annals of law enforcement. His weather-beaten face was a labyrinth of lines, each telling tales of relentless pursuit and turbulent past. The twister that had taken his home, and very nearly his life, had left him a walking testament to the endurance of the human spirit. A lonely man with a heart full of memories and eyes full of a fire that wished to consume the world's darkness. Elbridge's boots echoed against the cobblestones as he moved through the city, his figure casting a long shadow. His destination, the police station, loomed large. He pushed through its heavy doors, the entrance swallowing him whole. The station was a hive of activity, a symphony of shrilling phones, officers' banter, and the endless rustle of paperwork. He was introduced to Chief Lawson, a broad-shouldered man with crow's feet creeping out from behind spectacles perched precariously on the bridge of his nose. "Detective Carter," Lawson greeted, extending a beefy hand. "Heard a lot about you. You've made quite a name for yourself." "The past is just the wind in the rear of you, Chief," Elbridge replied. His voice was gravelly, carrying the weight of 1,000 unsolved cases. "I'm more interested in the road ahead." Lawson led him through a maze of corridors, their conversation a slow dance of shared knowledge and unspoken understanding. Each file handed over was another piece of the puzzle, another glimpse into the web of slave trading that tarnished the city. As he delved deeper, Elbridge began to notice something peculiar. Shadows stretched just a tad too long, an eerie chill wafting through the windowless rooms. Whispers among the officers took on a low, urgent tone, carrying undertones of unease. Small details that pricked at the edges of his consciousness, but easily brushed aside as the echoes of an overworked mind. By the time dusk began to stain the Kansas sky, he had set up shop in a cramped office filled with dusty files and stale coffee. The city outside had begun its descent into night, the street lamps dotting the roads like lighthouses guiding lost sailors. As he rifled through the mounds of paperwork, his mind churned, piecing together the fragments of the terrible tableau that was unfolding. His past experiences had taught him one thing: evil often wore a familiar face, but the subtle undercurrent of dread weaving its way into Dodge City suggested a horror far removed from the natural world. Yet he dismissed these inklings of the uncanny, attributing them to the strain of his grim task. The first chapter of his latest mission in Dodge City drew to a close, but the night was far from over. As he worked into the quiet hours, he couldn't shake off the disconcerting sense that the real story was yet to unfold, that the stage was merely being set for a drama of cosmic proportions. As he settled into an uneasy sleep on his makeshift cot, the whispers of the wind seemed to carry an unspeakable secret. As the veil of night deepened over Dodge City, Elbridge was locked in combat with his own dreams. Restless sleep found him tossed on a churning sea of writhing shadows and monstrous apparitions. Nightmares painted the canvas of his unconscious with a grotesque panorama of otherworldly horrors, monstrous beings whispering atrocities in a language no man should comprehend, yet he did. Awakening in the murky dawn light, he shook off the spectral residues of his dreams, but their echo reverberated in the chilling silence of his office. He heaved himself up, the taste of dread lingering on his tongue. The detective's heart carried an obscure burden, the memories of his dreams interweaving with the grim reality of his investigation. His days in the station were drenched in peculiarities. As he sifted through police records and conducted interviews, the world he once knew started to twist and deform under the weight of unsettling revelations. The mundanity of the station was now tinged with an unspoken terror, as though reality itself was seeping through a tear in the universe. His interactions with the officers revealed undercurrents of fear. He noticed Sergeant Millard's eyes, once bright with youthful fervor, now clouded with a dread that made his blood run cold. "The city's not the same, Detective," he confessed in hushed tones. "There's something out there, Something wrong. Wrong how? Elbridge asked, the question hanging in the air like a specter. I don't know, Millard stammered, a hint of terror creeping into his eyes. Just wrong. The cryptic conversations, veiled in nebulous hints and vague admissions, seemed to blur the boundaries of the real and the ethereal. With every unveiled secret, the realization sunk deeper into his core. The city was in the clutches of a monstrous force far beyond his understanding. As twilight draped its violet cloak over Dodge City, the once familiar landscape took on an alien form. Buildings towered like monolithic apparitions against the dying sun, and shadows slithered down alleyways like spectral serpents. An otherworldly aura seemed to seep into every brick, every soul in the city. In the privacy of his office, he grappled with the inhuman truths that clawed at his reality. His open-mindedness, once his guide, now threatened to push him into the chasm of madness. Yet he pressed on, his determination a defiant flame flickering against the encroaching darkness. The city he knew was morphing into a cosmic nightmare, a world teetering on the edge of an abyss. Despite the unrelenting dread, he soldiered on, steeling himself against the oncoming storm. Each terrifying revelation not only brought him closer to the slave traders, but also drew him further into a universe where nightmares bled into reality. Elbridge awoke on the third day to an alien dawn. The world outside his window was subtly skewed, the buildings seeming to breathe with an uncanny life, the sun casting long, ominous shadows that stretched into infinity. The detective, as though standing on the precipice of an abyss, felt a profound sense of dread creeping into his soul. His day was spent amidst the cobwebs of the station's archives, his fingers tracing the lines of ancient records and forgotten testimonies. The whispers of the officers had morphed into a deafening silence, their eyes mirroring the disquiet he felt within. In the midst of the quietude, he unearthed a name from an old missing persons report, Clara Morrow, a victim whose disappearance coincided with the rise of the slave trading ring. When he showed her photograph to the officers, he saw a flicker of recognition clouded by a surreal fear. They refused to speak of her, their lips sealed by an unspoken pact, their eyes darting to the darkest corners of the room. Undeterred, he sought out the only other person who might know more, Clara's elderly aunt, Mrs. Morrow. Her home was a shrine to the past, every room filled with an air of lingering sorrow. Over cups of lukewarm tea, she spoke in trembling whispers about Clara, the unusual circumstances of her disappearance, and the strange men who had come looking for her. "Never seen such men, Detective," she confessed, her rheumy eyes awash with fear. "They didn't seem right, like something out of a bad dream." Armed with this new lead, Elbridge returned to the police station, the echoes of Mrs. Morrow's words intertwining with his nightmares. The realization was slowly dawning. The traffickers weren't merely human, but twisted travelers from a dark, unfathomable dimension. The boundaries of his reality were becoming porous, the constant onslaught of otherworldly revelations threatening to tear apart his perception of the universe. Yet he stood tall, his resolve a beacon amidst the roiling chaos. The station transformed into an arena of spectral warfare as he pushed through its corridors, his world bending and warping under the monstrous influence of the otherworldly invaders. Time and space lost meaning, walls stretched into endless horizons, and ordinary objects took on menacing forms. His senses were assaulted by a cacophony of uncanny sights, sounds, and smells, the cosmic horror manifesting itself in all its terrifying glory. In a desperate attempt to regain control, he plunged into the abyss, confronting the entities within the shadowy depths of the station. Armed with courage and driven by his quest for justice, he hurled himself against the eldritch horrors that had made Dodge City their hunting ground. Dodge City, once a beacon of the frontier, was now engulfed in an obsidian darkness that seemed to choke the very life from its streets. Elbridge, caught in the grips of this cosmic terror, stood at the precipice of the unknown. The old detective found himself in the belly of the police station, the air heavy with a foreboding silence. Here in the labyrinthine depths, the veil between realities was at its thinnest. His pursuit of justice had led him to a paradoxical crossroads, where human depravity intertwined with cosmic horror. He was not alone. Dark shapes loomed in the corners of his vision, their forms slipping in and out of reality like grotesque phantoms. The otherworldly slave traders, creatures of the nebulous void, had revealed themselves in all their terrible glory. "Who are you?" Elbridge asked, his voice steady, a rock amidst a tumultuous sea. The entities did not respond with words, but with a language beyond human comprehension. A surge of images, emotions, and incoherent thoughts flooded his mind, an onslaught that threatened to shatter his sanity. Their response was a symphony of horror, a confirmation of their origins in a realm beyond the grasp of human understanding. As the stoic detective, he did not falter. His spirit, steeled by a lifetime of service, burned brighter against the encroaching darkness. He was a beacon of resilience amidst a tempest of terror, a singular point of human determination against an implacable cosmic foe. "Your reign of terror ends now," he declared, his voice echoing through the shadowy depths. He lunged forward, his every action driven by the burning need to bring an end to their atrocities. But what chance did a man have against a horror birthed in the dark recesses of the cosmos? The entities responded, not with aggression, but with an unsettling laughter that rumbled through the underbelly of the station. It was a sound that held no mirth, only the cold inevitability of despair. They reached out, their monstrous forms swirling and coalescing around him. He could feel himself being drawn in, pulled towards a reality far removed from his own. His world contracted, existence narrowing to a single point of searing light. And then there was darkness. Elbridge Carter, the loyal, selfless, and open-minded detective, was consumed, his essence scattered across the cosmic void. His last thoughts were not of fear, but of a deep-rooted hope for a better world, even if he would not live to see it. In the aftermath of his demise, a solemn silence fell over the city. The sun rose the next day, painting the sky with hues of golden hope. But Dodge City was forever marked by its brush with the cosmic unknown. Its citizens carried on, their lives irrevocably altered, their memories haunted by a horror they could barely comprehend. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed our content, show your support with a like and subscribe, and stay notified by hitting the bell icon. Expect more cosmic horror from Eldritch Tales Factory, and feel free to explore our other stories. See you in the next video.